see the mayor and screamed at Binyamin and almost threw him out. You can't see the mayor, you can't this, you can't that. So it's impossible to make a complaint to that fellow that was in before, because he has his big bully boy to intimidate everybody.
Listen, we obviously don't we don't fix it. We can't fix everything. We have to try our best, make a macha as best as we can. That's all I can say.
Marshall shot a German Shepherd that he thought was getting ready to attack him. Took out his gun and shot it. The owner was very upset. Called the police. The police came and said, "Did you have it on a leash?" He said, "No." They said,
"Great." Here in Sfas?
No, I don't think it was here in Sfas.
Okay, it's good to know that that's a law.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know. Okay, we will be closing up fire and dog laws. We will now continue. Oh, it's working. Right on time. Okay, great. So now we're about to begin. Back in our woman halachis. Is it ready?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. Okay, we're reading from chapter 2, halacha 8 from Halichas Bas Yisrael. We are dealing with detailed laws relevant, particularly to women, relating to davening. The last thing we discussed, for those who remember, we discussed the statement of Hashem Vayichai, amongst others, that you are meant to have a designated fixed area in the home or in shul for davening. And we explained, based on Kabbalah, that doing so helps the tefillas go up to heaven more speedily, as in every area they have klippos in the air that try to prevent and knock off the tefillas from reaching heaven. When we have a set spot for prayer, we've already cleaned up those klippos, and therefore the airways are cleared. When we daven a new spot every day, we're having there are new klippos that are infringing on the pathway of the tefillas from going out. That's the Kabbalistic reason behind that we explained last class, and we're up to the next part. A woman should not engage in housework such as laundering, ironing, cleaning, or cooking before reciting morning prayers. So, in chapter 89 in the Shulchan Aruch, we have a number of restrictions that are brought that apply prior to prayer. We're going to discuss them now. And again, everyone agrees. If you remember, in our first class, we discussed a number of times that there's a general dispute amongst Rishonim if women are obligated in daily prayer or not, Shacharis Mincha. But everyone agrees that a woman is obligated in some daily prayer. Some say it's actually Shacharis and Mincha, while others say it's your own personal prayer. But everyone agrees you're obligated in some prayer. So you may not. So this halacha is binding according to all opinions. That just like men have these restrictions, also women have these restrictions. And no matter which side of the debate you follow, everyone agrees that before you do some of your prayers, you have an obligation to pray. So let's take it regarding brachas. So before brachas, in which you haven't yet said any prayers yet to God, you are obligated, according to everyone, to follow these regulations. However, once you have said brachas, the regulations that I will mention, we didn't mention them, and we touched upon it about cooking, cleaning, etc. We're going to mention all of them. And once a woman has said the morning blessings, including the brachas of a maver sheno, thank you, the maver sheno me'enai, and the yehiratzon afterwards, which according to the Rambam fulfills the biblical mitzvah of prayer, then if they are accustomed, like the widespread custom used to be, to not daven Shacharis and Mincha every day, then they may do malacha, obviously. In other words, those who follow the approach that they don't daven Shacharis and Mincha, then they are not prohibited from doing malacha or any other things we say till they do so, because they hold that they don't have to. They already fulfilled their prayer obligation through saying brachas. But as we already discussed, the main halacha is that women are obligated in Shacharis and Mincha, and that is the directive we tell them, and therefore, until they do so, they are restricted from all these things just like a man. So what are the restrictions? So we'll get to malacha soon. We'll begin from the beginning of the chapter 89 of the restrictions that are mentioned. Restriction number 1, and in the age of cell phones and WhatsApps and messages, this is very, very much more relevant. Greeting people. We do not greet people before davening. What does that mean? So if I happen to be walking down the street, I don't ignore them. I can say good morning. But I don't go out of my way to greet someone. So if I see my neighbor standing by her apartment, I'll not walk over to her and say good morning until I daven. Okay, there are greeting restrictions. The Isser applies as follows. It's any greeting such as good morning, how are you, those type of things. But if you cut straight to the chase, can you babysit, no good morning, can you babysit my daughter tomorrow? You cut straight to the chase. Okay, you didn't greet anyone. The idea is that you're not allowed to greet a human being before you greet God. That's the idea. First greet God, and then you can greet him, which would basically mean that you should be davening as early as possible. Which would mean, let's say you are accustomed with a great custom of sending a good morning to your spouse, your relative, your parent, your son, your daughter every single morning. That should be done only after davening.
Can sound rude, if you say.
What's that?
If you say straight away, can you babysit my daughter? You don't say good morning. It's rude.
I agree with you. So wait till you daven to do it. I agree with you. The halacha is before davening be rude. The halacha is before davening don't say good morning. So unless you meet the person. If the person I happen to mention, oh, good morning, how are you? Can you babysit? That's not a problem because I met them. And then it's v'darkei Hashem. But to go out of your way to greet them and have a conversation with them, that's why sending a message is going out of your way. Okay. Now, even replying to a message, and someone might say you want to reply back with a good morning, then that's the whole point of messages, that you have the right to choose when to reply, when not to. That's the beauty of it. You can wait. Also, emails, I can wait a day, I can wait an hour to reply, unless the person sending you has anxiety issues, and if they don't get a reply within 5 minutes, they're already almost about to call 911. Then then yes, I guess you should reply. Regarding the word Shalom Aleichem or Mashlomcha in Hebrew, so that is not allowed to be said even if you happen to meet someone. So that we never use at all until after davening. So we don't say Mashlomcha, we don't say Shalom Aleichem. On Shabbos, this is very particular, this is very relevant. We're not supposed to say Shabbat Shalom. So in English, we just say Good Shabbos. We avoid it because we don't say Shalom. But in Israelis who say Shabbat Shalom rather than Good Shabbos, so you can't say Shabbat Shalom in the morning before you have davening. You should just say Good Shabbos. And that's what I do, and I sometimes get some weird steers. It's like Shabbat Shalom, Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. I'm not sure if the weird steers are because I actually said to them Good Shabbos, which is not accustomed in many places to greet someone, or because I used the different words. I haven't figured it out yet, but in any event, Shabbat Shalom is a problem to say before Shachris. You have to first daven Shachris. But other terms you can use. You're passing by the street, you can say Good Shabbos. Good morning.
I met a lady on the way to shul yesterday, and she didn't know where to go, so I helped her to go with me, and then she would and told her a few other places. Is that okay if somebody looks like they?
Of course, no. The issue we're discussing is only to the words of greeting. Everything else is mutter. You're allowed to do a mitzvah. You're allowed to do regarding malacha. Work, that's not considered work. We're going to discuss what work is specifically considered work that is prohibited before davening Shachris. But here we're right now just discussing greeting someone, which, as we said, if you happen to bump into them, there's no isser of greeting at all, with exception to the words Shalom Aleichem or Mashlomcha.
It's a 2.5 because my son didn't say it. I had to learn this. I didn't know. I'm thinking, what does he say? Good Shabbos, but Shalom. And they had told me he's not allowed to say Shalom.
So you're saying you're already aware of this, what I'm saying? You were already aware of what I'm saying? Good. Well, sure. Very happy to hear. I enjoy it when the people I teach know everything that I'm already saying. They're not teaching them anything new. It's better when they know everything already, because then I know they're doing it.
So with the text, if somebody reached out to you and it was something you needed to reply to, that's okay?
So you can reply.
Okay, but just don't initiate, you're saying.
Don't initiate, yeah. No, I mean, you can even initiate just without good morning.
Oh, okay.
You can send a message. Can you babysit my daughter tonight? I'm not saying good morning.
Okay.
So if someone calls you, so what I do is if somebody already called me and I'm answering the phone, so I'm allowed to say hello. It's as if I'm meeting them, but I won't say Shalom Aleichem, Mashlomcha. I won't use the terms of Shalom. That's the idea. But let's say I'm calling someone, so then I personally don't call people before Shachris, because I like to begin with good morning, how are you? Not just by the way, it's a little rude, so therefore you just push it off till later. Okay, regarding eating and drinking before davening, we already discussed that. I'm not going to repeat it. We discussed it in previous classes. There's also restrictions regarding even learning Torah before davening. But those restrictions are, it's in-depth Torah learning, which like a man can't sit down and learn, an in-depth daf of Gemara before Shachris. But other, regular Torah learning is not a problem before davening. Now we're going to get to malacha, doing activities.
Could you do a test before you daven?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Without Tehillim?
Yeah, not a problem. Again, only in depth. The idea is that a person's mind shouldn't be, when males study Torah, a lot of times we get very in depth into it and into arguments, and our minds can be completely encompassed with the Torah thoughts throughout the whole davening. We're davening anymore. This happened once with the Beis Yosef. The story with the Harizal in the shul that they used to daven in together. So the Beis Yosef was the Rav, the Marad Asra, and the Chazan was not going to begin Shemon Esrei Chazaros Hashatz until the Beis Yosef finished davening. For some reason this morning, the Beis Yosef was taking forever. He was just standing there and shaking his head, kavana, not taking 3 steps back, and everyone's waiting 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. How long can a congregation wait for before they explode? So the Arizal saw this happening. He walked over to the Beis Yosef and he whispered something in his ear. Beis Yosef got shooken up. He immediately took 3 steps back and he finished the Nesr. So he asked him what happened. So the Arizal, so what was said was, I don't know if the Arizal said it, the Beis Yosef said it, that the Arizal said it. The Arizal said that he visioned that the Beis Yosef was debating a halachic ruling in his head during Shemoneh Esrei, and he got so caught up in this, he forgot where he was. So what did I do? I went over to him, I told him the answer to his halachic question to solve his issue. And then he took 3 steps back. Okay, so of the malacha restrictions, we have the following. The general malachas that are recorded before a mitzvah, that a person is not allowed to eat a meal, that we discussed in previous classes. I said that a person is not allowed to enter the bathhouse. This is today what we do is to take a simple shower. It's not included in that, but it's talk about like a spa. A person is not allowed to get a haircut before davening. And here we are including any other malacha that takes a lot of time. Laundry is not permitted before davening. A person has to daven before doing all these things. Even going shopping.
For the woman?
This is, again, those, according to halacha, the women are obligated in shachris and mincha. Women are also obligated to daven before they do malacha. We've already discussed in the past that Zman Tefillah apply to women as well. It's just a matter of getting used to scheduling. Women who are very busy with the kids and they follow the opinion that, they're not chayiv to daven shachris and mincha anyways. So as I already said, do your brachas, you're done your brachas, you're good to go. But all those who are following the main halacha, which is that women are obligated shachris and mincha, then all these things apply as well, and they have to daven on time and also before they do these activities. Which usually one helps the other. When you're not to daven on time, you daven early, and it's before these activities. When you do your activities for davening, it ends up that you end up not davening on time. So they usually come together.
Rabbi Goldstein, a question. I come a little obsessive compulsive, but I often wake up in the middle of the night, like 3, 4 in the morning, and I already have my laundry in the machine, and I just turn it on so that I can have it finished and ready to hang out.
Right, that's not melacha. That's not considered melacha. Melacha is to gather the laundry, to put it in, to take it out, squeeze it, hang it up. That's the melacha. Turning on a button is.
Yeah. In today's world, it's a little different.
Okay, So that's the halacha regarding melacha. We're going to continue now towards the next halacha here. A woman should be sure that her clothes are neat and clean for prayer. One should not recite Shemoneh Esrei in a bathrobe or apron. So this halacha applies to both men and women. Whenever a person is davening, no matter what side of the debate they hold of, you're chayiv in davening, you're not chayiv in davening, doesn't matter. You're praying to God. Shemoneh Esrei, you have to be dressed like you're fit to stand before a king. That's the halacha. The halacha doesn't list articles of clothing that may and may not be worn. It just says a general rule, and everyone has to use their own common knowledge and common sense. Would a person stand before, today we don't have kings anymore, but would a person stand before, a prestige politician that he was meeting in this type of garment? That's the measuring stick. And that's why, regarding, for example, it being barefoot or not, it was dependent on country. As in Muslim countries till today, in Saudi Arabia, it is actually an affront to the king or the aristocrats to come with shoes or socks on your feet. You have to come barefooted. That's part of the honorary, dress code. So in those countries, then, on the contrary, you're allowed to daven without socks and shoes on. But in most of the Western world, where if you showed up barefoot to a meeting with the president, you would be talked about for the next week in the press as someone who lost his marbles, or making a protest against socks for some company, anti-socks. So, obviously it's not proper dress code and a person would have to change. Now, it doesn't say specifically, again, regarding a robe or bathrobe, but since it's not something a person would appear in public with, so therefore it would be problematic. Same thing with slippers. If, can a woman or a man daven with slippers? And the answer is, would you show up in front of a dignitary wearing slippers? So, here in Israel, it happens to be that sandals are very in, and people show up in sandals. Even the dignitaries show up in sandals. Right. So that's the thing. That's the measuring yard. This is something that's that you would wear to a you would wear when you're meeting, when you're seeing someone of prestige. And if the answer is yes, this would be normal dress code, and then the answer is yes, you could. But practically, from my perspective, is that I would not go out to meet maybe to go out and throw out the garbage or do something. I would wear slippers, but to go meet someone, I wouldn't go meet them with slippers on. So I put on shoes before davening. The point is that we do external things to wake up the senses that we are indeed standing in front of the Eibishter, standing in front of the King of all kings, and we want to be dressed appropriately before we do that. According to halacha, the areas that must be covered this is for a man and a woman, is the chest. A person cannot daven shirtless. Normally, this is, by the way, referring specifically to Shemoneh Esrei. Normally, other parts of davening don't have this restriction. So let's say brachas, you're allowed to daven if you want with your robe or apron or whatever, and even up to Shemoneh Esrei, even Sukkot Zimra. This halach of standing before the king and having a dress code appropriate for that is specifically to only one prayer and one prayer only, and that's Shemoneh Esrei. That's it. Whether Shachris Mincha Mariv, it's not entering the debate. Are you chayiv in the prayer or not? You are right now praying it, so this is the dress code. So you can wear your slippers until Shemoneh Esrei, switch right away to your shoes, and then take them off again after Shemoneh Esrei. So there is a roundabout way of davening, most of davening with inappropriate, dress, which is allowed. I once had on Miftzayim an individual who would never put on a shirt. And I wanted to know, can I put on tefillin with him or not? Does tefillin require someone to be wearing a shirt or not? And it says even Shema doesn't. You're allowed to say Shema. A man who's obligated in Shema is allowed to say Shema without a shirt on. There's no obligation to have a shirt on for Shema. Now, I'm not saying people should be in shul shirtless, like they're on the beach. But let's just say someone, woke up without let's say he doesn't go to sleep with tzitzis, you're supposed to, but let's say he doesn't. And he woke up 2 minutes before Seif Shema, Kriya Shema, and all he has on is, his undergarments, that's it. He doesn't have to wait to get dressed. That's Shema right away. That's it. Wash his hands, that's Shema immediately. There's no obligation to wear a shirt upon saying Shema. However, tefillin, it's brought down, has the same law as Shemona Esrei. So at first, I wasn't going to put on tefillin with him. But then I read in the poskim that that's only initially, but in a case where push comes to shove, it's either tefillin without shirt or shirt without tefillin. It's either, or no shirt, no tefillin. Then you put on tefillin. So this guy would put on tefillin without his shirt every day. Next to, I used to go on the sun near Tiveria. It's called Migdal. It's a little yeshuv next to Tiveria. And there would be the shirtless tefillin wearer every Friday morning. Davening would take a long time davening. Not Shemona Esrei, just tefillin, Shema. It's quite a spectacle. Okay. With that said, we're now going to go into the set of halachas of the Isser of Erva, of looking at immodest areas during davening. And here it's two sides. Here it's number one, what are restrictions that women have upon themselves, and what are restrictions that women have when men are around and men are davening that they have to be aware of. This is a two-part halacha.
No, I want to ask you something. You're talking about wearing a robe. Now, there are women who wear like a Shabbos robe.
So if they would go out and meet someone with those Shabbos robes, Shabbos, they would have no problem greeting Shabbos guests and that, then that's fine. That's the measuring stick. It's not, we're not answering anything called a robe. It also has to do with, is this something? Okay. So this question touches upon the following. Does a woman have any restrictions of davening if there is a non-properly clothed woman in front of her? What about a baby? If there's a baby running around with, just a diaper, can she daven? Now, the diaper, if it's smelly, enters a different subject, which is next, about davening next to excrement and urine. That we'll discuss next. But the first subject is just the modesty issue. What about, some children when they're in potty training years, they are bare naked as they came out when they were born. And so can you daven in front of that? Can you learn Torah in front of that? Is there an Isser of Erva of learning or davening in front of that? And what is the appropriate dress required for a woman in public, in face of men, or in the house even, in face of their son or their father or their husband, for them to be allowed to daven and learn Torah? So those are the three things that we're going to discuss. Let's begin in general. In general, it's the halach is in chapter 74. There is a biblical prohibition for one to daven or learn Torah while seeing the erva. So let me just skip to the right place. Okay. Now, biblically, this refers to the actual private parts of the male and the female. There's a biblical prohibition for man to man, man to woman, woman to woman, woman to man. If the private area is visible, it's forbidden for man or woman to learn Torah or daven in that presence, within the vision of it. That's biblically forbidden. Okay. Now, regarding a child, okay, again, this doesn't matter the gender. It's even male to male, it's male to female, female to female, female to male. Now, regarding a child, if a child is below the age of 3 for a girl and below the age of 9 for a boy, from the letter of the law, there is no prohibition. So usually in potty training years, if it's under age 3, then it's not a problem at all, and you can daven and learn, even if that is the situation, that the child is walking around unclothed. Nonetheless, the best thing is for them to be clothed, obviously, but again, this is not an impediment. This is not halachically prohibit. Who can give me an example of where we do this on a regular basis, that a bracha is said while a certain part of the body, the erva, is unclothed of a child? A bris. Right. That's what's done. The bracha is said, the child is unclothed, so that's an example of a case where we don't apply the erva law to a child below the age. And that's because according to halacha, a child doesn't enter into the stage of sexual discussion or sin until they reach the age of 9 for a boy, 3 for a girl. They're not relevant to that subject of Erva, of Arias. But once a girl is past age 3, if she's doing potty training past age 3, then that is something that is required. Now, so as we said before, that even a woman is not allowed to see another woman. So that means even a woman will not be allowed to see the genitalia area of this child if the girl is over age 3 years old. But by a boy, you would have a lot more. You would have till age 9.
Can I ask you something? Is there a problem when the father cleans a girl?
Say it again.
When the baby is with a tattoo, can with the diaper, and the father changes the diaper. So the problem is it?
Well, what you're saying for him to learn or daven while he's doing that?
No, but
There is no issur for husbands to change diapers. I do agree. There is no. I don't like publicizing that for personal reasons, but there is no issur. There is no prohibition. My wife's not at the shiur. No, you're saying from the aspect of him seeing his daughter unclothed. So what we're saying is that it's even permitted for him if there's no smell, if there's no feces or urine, it would technically even be permitted for him to daven and learn in the presence of his less than 3-year-old daughter. So certainly he's allowed to change her diaper. Regarding the general question of to what age can a parent be able to look at their opposite gender child unclothed, it's not just a question for a husband changing the diaper of his daughter. It's a question of a father changing the diaper. It's also a question of a mother, helping her son in the shower or anything of the like, where the child's unclothed. So there is no halachic age that's written down regarding this specifically. It is derived from other areas of halacha where it discusses sleeping habits between parents and children of opposite genders. And there the halacha is, which we would extend to here as well, is that there's 3 guiding principles. If any of these apply, then it would be prohibited. The first guiding principle is once the child is bar mitzvah, it's already, that's for sure. If even none of the other guiding principles apply, I'm sorry, at 11 years old, not bar mitzvah, people from 11 years old, no matter what, it would apply. The second guiding principle is if the child's body has already reached puberty, it already has shown signs of puberty by a girl or by a boy, and meaning the maturity of the physical body, and number 3, which is the earliest one and the main one, that the principle that applies, once a child himself is embarrassed. Once the child is embarrassed for him to be seen naked, then that's already a sign that they have a sense of their, of their nudeness, and therefore it is forbidden for the father to see the daughter and forbidden for the mother to see the son unclothed. It's fully unclothed. By a man, there's a halacha that even if he's fully clothed, he has to have, in addition to the fact that his own private area is covered, he must have a separation between his heart and his erva. He must have a separation between his chest and his lower part of the body, which is accomplished through a belt, pants, right? Pants is around the waist. It's accomplished through any of these means. And that's one of the reasons why men wear gartels. It's to separate, but it's just an addition because anyways, we're wearing pants. And even those Moroccans who wear jalabiyas, which are like robes, they still, as far as I know, wear undergarments. So that acts as a separation. But if a man technically were to wear a robe without any undergarment, he cannot daven or learn. It's forbidden. He has to have a separation between his heart and the lower extremities. Now the question is, does this apply by a woman as well? If a woman is just wearing a robe and nothing else under, is she allowed to learn and daven? So the answer here is that the poskim are lenient. Okay, Poskim are lenient in rule that this concept of that we don't allow the heart to see the lower extremities does not apply to a woman, only applies to a man. Nonetheless, women are accustomed to be stringent, and that's why also in the customary immersion in a mikvah, while the bracha said that separation is made using the arms to separate. That is the basis of it in order to separate between the heart and the lower extremities, even though min hadin, from the letter of the law, as I said before, it's not required by a woman. So now regarding men. So by woman, it's pretty much quite lenient. A woman can learn in front of an unclothed woman, so long as the genitalias are covered, starting from age 3. And she can, of course, learn in front of a man that has wearing short sleeves. There's no isser of erva regarding that, so there's no real restrictions by a woman seeing a man. But a man seeing a woman does have the restrictions. We covered this last year, if you remember, in our modesty course. We did a course on tznius. So being that a lot of the halachas are based on this subject, we touched upon this as well. And what we explain is as follows, that men have certain restrictions that are not allowed to learn or daven in face of an immodestly dressed woman, or let's not use the word immodest, just a woman who just has certain areas of her body uncovered for whatever reason that may be. Even if, she has the right to, it's in her home, or it's, she's nursing her child. But the fact of the matter is that if it's visible, a man has certain restrictions. And because of this, a woman has to be careful not to make the man stumble in learning Torah and davening in face of it. And this is even one's own wife. This is even between wife and husband. There's nothing immodest for a woman to be not dressed properly in front of her husband. Obviously, that's not immodest, but it would prevent him from being allowed to daven or learn in that presence. So what are the halachas? So in chapter 75, we have the following guidelines. Basically, it's the same laws as regular laws of tznius that we know of. A woman is allowed to show her face, her arms, and elbow, or I should word it, a man is allowed to see the face, arm, up until the elbow, and of a woman while davening, of any woman, and he's not allowed to see above the elbow. If one tefach above the elbow is revealed, he's no longer allowed to daven or learn in face and vision of that woman. If any area below the neckline or any area above the knees is visible, he's not allowed to daven or learn in front of that woman. So therefore, even if a person is not as careful in how they may be sitting in front of their husband, if you're having a Torah conversation, then right now is not a discussion of the laws of tznius. Right now there's a discussion you're not allowed to learn or daven in front of this. This is only in words. If it's mutter to, it's most relevant to think words of Torah in presence of someone who's not dressed modestly. The isser is only to verbalize the words or to daven in face of it. Regarding hair, it's the same thing. A man is not allowed to daven and learn in face and vision of a married woman's uncovered hair, even if it's his own wife. It's forbidden min hadin for him to daven and learn in that presence. Regarding the legs, so here we have a major debate in the poskim. The legs under the knees is considered erva or not, such as if the woman's not wearing socks, can she have a conversation with her husband about the parsha while she's not wearing socks in a hot summer Friday night or Friday Shabbos day, and he sees her feet? So this is a major debate. Some say yes, some say no. While many are lenient in this, the Alter Rebbe and the Shulchan Aruch, as is the main approach of understanding, is stringent in this, so that everything has to be covered. So what this would mean is that the husband would have to arrange for his eyes to stray away from the feet, and if it's not possible, then the wife should cover herself with something, or to put it out of vision, out of sight when they're having a Torah conversation. But those who are lenient have a whom to rely, as other poskim do bring leniencies regarding this, especially the feet as opposed to the legs. The feet have a greater leniency in placement than the legs. The legs, majority of poskim hold, it has to be covered. Now, we discussed in the past in the tznius course regarding if stockings is a good enough covering, and ideally the stockings that a lot of girls wear today, which are see-through and are only like 20, below 40 dinar, they are not really worth anything because they don't properly cover and shade the legs. But nonetheless, that's the minhag, is the hakel, that blurs the vision of the skin, and therefore the lenient approach is to avoid that. But in some communities, especially Hasidic communities, they're machmer to have darker shades exactly for this purpose. This prohibition of a man learning in front of a woman who's not properly dressed applies starting from age 3 of the girl. And this applies even by his own child. So even my own daughter, once she is 3 years old, I'm not allowed to learn a daven in face of her when she is not properly dressed. So let's say we don't care, we're not makbid for her to walk around without, stocking socks inside the home. It's just family. Nonetheless, once she's 3 years old, I have a restriction from davening or learning in front of her. This is the main approach in the Paiskim. Famously, the Chazon Ish held one second. Yeah, the Chazon Ish famously held that starting from age that this requirement is only from age 6, 7. He argued on the age 3. He said that only once a girl's body becomes physically developed a little bit, 6, 7 years old, is she required to be dressed modestly. You're not allowed to daven learn in front of her when she's not. But under that age, it's mutter. Again, this was the Chazon Ish's ruling, and some do follow this, but the mainstream approach in the Paiskim, as well as our Rebbe's opinion, is that it starts from age 3. That was also the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah, starting from age 3, that it's usher to learn or daven. Even though we agree which man is going to have bad thoughts about this, that's not the point. The point is that this is the rule, this is the law. Person's not allowed to daven in front of those areas uncovered, and therefore we have to be careful starting from age 3 regarding it. So this would mean if you're going to shul, if a girl's going to putting your daughter, your granddaughter to go to shul, then from age 3 you have to be careful that she's properly dressed. Because you can't say, well, I follow the Chazon Ish, and you're forcing everyone to eat the Chazon Ish. Well, who says everyone follows the Chazon Ish? You have many people in shul who don't follow the Chazon Ish. So for them, it's usher. As I said before, this would apply even to one's own relatives, someone's own daughter or mother. There's no special heter given regarding this matter regarding relatives. Even though, as I already said, there's no issur for a father to see his daughter unclothed if the daughter is still a child and she's before the age of puberty and she's not embarrassed. But to daven and learn in that presence is forbidden. Okay, there's a little bit of a difference. So daven and learn in the presence is forbidden, while just plain sight is permitted until that age that we mentioned. Okay, any questions on this before we move on? We pretty much covered most of the bases here. Okay, so we're going to move on then to the laws of tzaya, which is excrement or urine davening in face of it. So we're going to read inside and then look at from the outside some halachas. When there is an infant or toddler in the house, a woman should not recite Shemona Esrei before checking the child's diaper. If she fails to do so and then discovers the child has soiled his diaper, she must repeat Shemona Esrei. The child was less than 4 cubits away from her. So I have to admit the way this halacha was written here is a little misleading, and it requires me to explain a few further points, which I then found out he actually crunched into his footnote. But again, it should have been put in my opinion, in the main halacha. Just like we find that it's biblically forbidden to learn or pray in front of an erva, the genitalia area revealed, exposed, so too it's forbidden to learn or pray. I didn't mention this earlier, but also say blessings. This applies to the same thing. You're not allowed to say a blessing in face of all these things. in face of feces or urine. Now, most of us would ask, well, Baruch Hashem, today in the modern world we have bathrooms. Most of us are not looking at feces or urine. So what relevance does this have? Well, it does contain relevance in the event that you have a baby at home, or you have a grandson that you're or grandchild you're babysitting for, and they are still in diapers. So the diaper babies, they cause us to enter into a lot of these halachic questions. So if the child is running around just with a diaper, he has nothing else on in the diaper, it's a lot more severe than if the child is fully clothed, or at least the diaper is covered by pants or skirt or whatever it is, and it's possible that he made inside of his diaper. The difference is as follows. The halacha is that it's forbidden to learn and daven not only in front of feces, but also in front of anything that's designated for feces. For example, a potty. If we have, back in the day, they used to have wood potties. I don't think they make them anymore. Today they make aluminum potties and plastic potties. But I don't think they make any more wood potties for obvious reasons. But back in the day, there were many wood potties, and wood potties would absorb the feces, the excrement, etc. And therefore, the halacha was that even if it was cleaned with bleach, it's considered a bathroom, and it's usher to learn or daven near it. You can't daven inside of it, and you have to distance yourself 4 amos from it. And however, regarding a glass potty or a metal potty or a plastic potty, they're considered smooth enough material that even if they're used as a potty, nonetheless, you are allowed to daven and learn next to them if they are clean. Why am I mentioning this? So first of all, number one, can I daven next to the potty that's sitting there and not yet used? What's its material made out of? If it's made of plastic and it's clean, it's not a problem. But what about the diaper? The diaper itself is considered like a potty. Its only designated use is for soiling. That's it. No one washes the diaper and then uses it for other purposes. It's gone in the garbage once it's soiled. So therefore, that has the status of a graf shilri of a potty. And before the child makes in it, so it's clean. There's no issue. It's like I just bought a brand new potty. There's no issue with it. But once a child makes in it, it's considered a graf shilri. And I'm now let a daven to learn within its sight. So even if I took it off the child is now clean, and I threw it in the garbage, and the garbage, I see the diaper sticking out on top because the garbage was full. I have a biblical prohibition of learning or davening within if it's in my sight. It has to be covered and put away. So too, if the child has soiled his diaper and you can see the diaper, it is forbidden to daven or learn within the sight. Even if you don't smell. I don't smell anything.
Even if something doesn't smell.
Even if he didn't soil it to the point that it's, letting off a smell, or you have special diapers that, they constrict, they contain the smell within the diaper. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's nothing to do with the smell. The fact is, this diaper is considered a potty, and you can't daven or learn next to a potty within your vision or within 4 amos. Okay, that's the rule. Can't be within 4 cubits, which is approximately 6.5 feet. Okay, can't be within that radius of you. Now, if it's covered and you don't smell anything, then that's when it's mutter. So if the child soiled his diaper, but he has pants on, and so therefore I don't see the diaper, then so long as I don't smell anything, I'm allowed to daven and learn even next to him. And it doesn't matter why you don't smell anything, as long as it's, normal. Most normal people will not smell it. If it's covered, so long as most normal people will not smell it, it's not considered a smell, and it's not a problem. You're allowed to daven and learn to the child. But if it smells, then you have to distance yourself from the child till you don't smell it. And only then are you allowed to daven and learn, or you have to change them first. Those are the only options that are available. So this is also relevant to bring the child to shul. A person should not be bringing a child who's still in diapers to shul and taking a chance the child's going to make, child's going to smell, and people are going to be prohibited from davening and learning next to this child. And by bringing this child to shul, you're making these people stumble. Furthermore, bichlal, bringing children to shul before they are the age of chinuch is extremely put down in halacha, in the poskim and in the Musar Svarim. The Musar Svarim write, Shlach Chadash. See if we can read his words. Shlach Chadash writes like this. This is written in his Sefer, Shnei Luchos Habris. In today's times, there are children who come to shul who cause those who bring them to get punished, as they come to desecrate the holiness of the shul and play in it like it's their playground in the streets. One kid laughs with another kid hits another sings, another cries, another shouts, another runs around, chases a friend. Shla knew what was going on. Some children even do their needs in the shul and are required to be cleaned and removed. At times, the father gives his child a sefer and the child throws it on the floor or tears it. To summarize in conclusion, these children disturb the worshipers and desecrate the name of Hashem. One who brings such children to shul should not aspire to receive reward and is rather to worry of the punishment that is befitting him. This is similar to a master who brings his retarded slave with him to speak with the king, and the slave mocks and disturbs the entire conversation. Surely the king will release his wrath not on the imbecile slave, but on the master who brought him there. Furthermore, at times the parent begins playing with the child during his own prayer. The greatest evil of all this is that the child will grow up and accustomed to his ill treatment of davening and a synagogue and continue to do so when he's older. Accordingly, one is not to bring very small children to shul, as he only loses out by doing so. These are the translated words of the Shla. And this is unanimous.
When was it written?
Shla Kaddish wrote a sefer in 1640.
Wow.
In the Alter Tehillas Hashem, the Alter Rebbe, there's a paragraph about bringing
Right.
children
So
to shul.
in the Alter Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe writes the following. This is a compilation of different halachas the Alter Rebbe discusses about children. He says, on the one hand, one is to teach. It's a mitzvah and obligation upon a parent to educate his child to go to shul and participate in the minyan once they have reached the age of chinuch. One is to teach his young children and educate them to answer Amen. And it says that from the moment the child answers Amen, he has a portion of the world to come. That's very important. It comes to shul and answers Amen. And one is to educate his children to stand, behave in shul with awe and fear. Then he continues. However, children who run around in shul for fun and make noise and disturb their parents and others in their davening are not to be brought to shul at all. At all. That is the words of the Alter Rebbe. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't listen to this. And they think they're doing a good thing. How can I miss minyan? No. If you have a child and you're babysitting, then you daven at home. That's why we have the concept of davening b'yechidus. For those situations, don't bring your child to shul, and we have to hear him cry, and he makes in his diaper. Even if the child is an infant, it's not going to run around, but they cry and they disturb people. So in those situations, it's forbidden to bring the child to shul.
Actually, I wasn't given a head. There was a child in malfunction and really shouting and everything. The same thing, no, for when you bring children to Kibbutz Tzadikim.
Kibbutz Tzadikim is more of a tourist attraction. It's a little. I understand what you're saying. It's a shul. It's people, but it's also more of a tourist attraction. Okay, let's first start with the shuls. Let's start with the shuls. That people should at least learn this. They should know that people a lot of times make the mistake. There's a lot of educational mistakes that we make. We think we're being mechanech. We're doing a good thing, bring them to shul, teach them Torah mitzvahs. When really the Chachamim say the exact opposite. This is bad chinuch to bring the child to shul in this state, when it's gonna, just making a joke out of the whole thing. And Sefer Chassidim actually writes that it's a worry of danger for the father to bring such a child to shul that disturbs the congregation. And so this is something that a person should be careful in. And shul is not a babysitting service where the mother gets to sleep extra on Shabbos, or the husband has to have a good time, recreational time with his son. If the son behaves himself, stays in shul, behaves nicely, then fine. But if they run around, you can bring them to shul for a minute to kiss the tire. That's not a problem. But shoo them out, let them go play afterwards. To stay in shul and treat it like a playground, unfortunately, not a good thing at all.
How do you make it known?
The gabbai. This is the gabbai's job. The gabbai has a lot of different jobs. One of his primary jobs is enforcing the laws.
In the women's section, there's still gabbai.
They have to start hiring women gabbais. Women also come to shul to daven. They're also not allowed to learn in smell of feces. They're also forbidden. It's the same halachas. So, if a woman, if she said, well, I don't have no choice, I have no one to babysit. No, no one's obligating you to go to shul. No one's obligating you. You can
What if
stay
she
home.
says, I want my other 6 children to, have this experience, so I'm going to bring.
Again, it's very nice what people would like to do, but there's certain ways of acting with common decency which take into account the rest of the people in your environment and not just yourself. And that means you can't bring a disturbance into the public just because you feel that you want to do so. As I said before, this mentality of, personal benefit in face of the detriment of the community is very wrong, and it's not according to halacha.
Have you ever seen a Chabad minion that didn't have children running around making noise?
I don't care if it's Chabad or not Chabad. Everyone has to follow Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't matter what their names are. And, are there Chabad minyan that people talk during Kriyas HaTorah? I'm sure there are. It's nothing to do with Chabad or not Chabad. Everyone has to follow this. They'll say, well, we're special. We do shlichus. So we do shlichus by breaking Shulchan Aruch. We do shlichus by disturbing the karming against davening. It's all nonsense. There's no such thing. There's no exceptions to these rules. A children's minyan, I agree. If the Chabad house wants to have a children's minyan, and the children's minyan, the adult who's running the minyan is all disturbed all day because of the children, that's his job, to be disturbed by the children. So I agree. That's not a problem. Let them run around there in the children's minyan and daven and make noise and do whatever they do. But in the adult minyan, there's no place for it. And some things are not very into protest. What do you mean? It's accepted? No, it's not accepted. It's against halacha. And that's the job of the Rav, but more the job of the Gabbai to put his foot down. There are shuls the Gabbais do. There are shuls that the Gabbai are instructed by the Rabbanim of the shuls, and they're very strict. If they see someone bring a little kid to shul, they go over it and tell them, sorry, these are the regulations. You can't have the child run around in shul. It's not a playground. Go take him outside. And mainly in Sephardi shuls, they're very particular, very strict. But for some reason in Ashkenazi shuls, I don't know, there's a lot of hefkerus. There's a lot of the Gabbais we're too nice. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to say anything to anybody. They lose money in the aliyahs, So they don't want to do anything. They don't want to say anything. But in Sephardi shuls, they don't take any of this garbage. They put their foot down right away. And they boot out whoever needs to be booted out. If they need to boot out the father, boot him out too. If he's a disturbance. I remember I had a colleague who was Yemenite, and his grandfather lived in Yemen his whole life until they emigrated to Eretz Yisrael. But so he had a passion that whenever someone was davening in shul, he would rip on them. If someone was talking in the middle of davening, somebody was talking in the middle of davening, so this colleague of mine would rip on them, would get very angry. So I asked him, where do you get this from? He says, his grandfather. He says, grandfather, you think I'm bad? My grandfather would take a stick and snap the guy in the head. My grandfather there was no such thing in Yemen. In Yemen, you came to shul and you talked, you wouldn't come out without an injury. No, he said people didn't do it. It just wasn't done. It didn't even enter the mind to come into a shul and to talk. There's no such thing. It was, the first time that the person got hit with the stick, no one else ever did it again. It was over, But today we're we're embarrassed, The other day I was davening by a minyan and I was trying to hear Kriyas HaTorah, and the person in back of me was talking during the middle of Kriyas HaTorah. And I told him to stop. You're disturbing me. I can't hear. And he tells me, go closer. Who told you to sit over here? Go closer. This is the mentality. An adult. I'm not talking about a little child. I'm talking about an adult. But this is unfortunately this job of the Gabbai. The Gabbais go over such a person and tell him, either stop talking or leave the shul.
That I've seen.
Either stop talking or leave the shul. That's how it has to be done. Well, the Gabbai should be elected, and if the Gabbai is not following halachis, then he should be demoted from office, and they should get another Gabbai. Gabbai is in a position for life. If the Gabbai isn't doing his job as he's supposed to, you boot him. That's it. But we're talking all in a very organized and set environment, which unfortunately today is a lot of ifkeiros. Okay, at least we should know what the ideal should be, and we can work it from there to try to make changes. Okay. Now, an important point. From what age do we consider the child's diaper making, soiling, a problem regarding these issues? The child was just born last week. Is it already forbidden for me to learn and daven next to a soiled diaper? Or when does the age start from? So the answer is like this. Lichatchila. Let me just open this up. Maybe I'll open before I say it. Lichatchila, it applies even from 1 day old. Initially, one should distance himself from the feces of even a 1 day old child during prayer and learning, if possible. That's initially. However, minadin, from the letter of the law, so long as a child is not yet old enough to eat 27 grams of grain within 4 minutes, then his feces is not viewed as feces at all. So basically, so long as a child is still nursing and not taking maternal bottles, etc., then it's not a problem. The feces is not considered feces. You actually see when you start giving the child a bottle, formula and cereals, you see the smell changes. It becomes pungent. It becomes really bad. See, this is the purity of a mother's milk versus the industrial foods that we're given. Even if it's the best of the best, it still doesn't reach the worst of the worst mother's milk. And so that's the halacha, that once he starts eating grains, that's it. His feces is considered like an adult, and that's when you are obligated to distance yourself. Now, if the child made, and you have a stuffed nose, so you don't smell it, what's the halacha? As I said before, we go by majority of people. So if majority of people are able to smell this, then it's forbidden to daven or learn within 4 amos of the smell. You have to distance yourself 4 amos from the smell. So because of this, there's certain areas that you're not allowed to have a shul because of this halacha. For example, near a farmhouse, you can't have a shul. There's many yeshuvim that they have farm areas with cows and everything, and the smell is very, very pungent, and it's forbidden to set up a shul in such areas, and unfortunately some unknowingly did, and it's forbidden to daven in such a shul. Even if the people, the balei yeshuv, they say we don't smell anything because they live in it. They live in it 24/7. Of course they don't smell it. But someone who comes from the outside and they smell it, not only is it forbidden for you to daven, it's forbidden for them to daven. It's forbidden for them to daven in face of this very strong smell. What happens in a case where you have a smell but you can't find a source? Let's say, unfortunately, not just one person isn't following the halacha, but 10 people brought their little toddlers to shul, and we don't know whose diaper it is. And it could be one of 10 diapers. We don't know whose it is, and it smells. So if everyone is wearing pants, everyone's wearing a skirt, everyone's diaper is covered, you take air freshener, you spray it, and so long as you don't smell the smell, you're good. When the smell is covered, then the halacha is, so long as you don't smell it, that it's okay. If the smell isn't covered, then you have to distance yourself 4 amos from the smell. Okay. Anyhow, any questions regarding the subject?
What about the very smell of biyuv?
That's feces. What is biyuv? Biyuv is the sewage is the feces not just of one person but of the whole town.
No, I mean like in the kitchen it's a clogged sink.
Oh,
You have some
any really foul smell that's due to rottage and putrid is forbidden to daven or learn next to it. But throw up is not. Throw up is actually mutter. There's no isser to learn or daven next to vomit, throw up. Key. There's no isser. It's not good. I wouldn't suggest it. You probably can't concentrate, but there's no isser to learn or daven next to throw up. It's a more of a rotting smell. Yeah, I mean, all throw up is the enzymes are taking work on the food. The food isn't rotting. It's not. Anyways. Without getting too deep into it, bottom line is that let's say on the bus, somebody threw up. Somebody threw up. And it smells, and it's not getting cleaned up until the end of your ride, so you're going to have to survive. So can you continue davening? The answer is yes, you can. Okay. But if a baby made in the back, in the seat behind you, and it stinks, that's it. Take a nap, do something else, read a novel. You cannot learn a daven. That's it.
How about if you're sitting next to a woman on the bus and you don't have any other comfortable seat and she's dressed improperly? Can you sit there and say Tehillim?
For a man?
No, woman.
We said before, a woman has no restriction in seeing another woman unclothed, with exception to the genitalia. So, Baruch Hashem, even the most immodest still have that limited sense of dress. Baruch Hashem. So, so there's no issue with that, But so for a woman, it's not a problem. But for a man, 100% it's a problem. And what he has to do is he has to turn around, look somewhere else. He's not allowed to have her in his vision. I mean, this happens all the time. You're on a plane, you're on a bus, you're waiting online. I mean, unfortunately, it's a magefa everywhere, as they say. So the only option is the person to look down. The person doesn't put the woman within his vision when he learns in davens. Okay, we'll conclude with one last halacha, and that is as follows. A woman who is in the middle of Shemana Esrei is allowed to signal a child who is crying or disturbing her. She should not interrupt Shemana Esrei by speaking. If the child is causing a disturbance which makes it difficult to concentrate, she may walk over and quiet him down, but she must not speak. So this is what I read. This is the halacha l'maisa. If a woman or a man is davening and the child is disturbing them, then while you're not allowed to talk, there's this tremendous issue to talk during Shemana Esrei, so that's not allowed. But you can motion to the child, and if the child is not getting the point, then you're allowed to actually walk over to the child, lift him up, and put him elsewhere, or move yourself elsewhere in order to daven.
Not holding.
Uh-huh.
Can she finish the prayer with the child in the hand?
If that's the only way for him to calm down, then, ideally it's usher to hold on to anything that may fall, and you're worried about it may fall during davening. The question is, in a time of need, can we be lenient? Possibly, have to look into it, but seemingly in a time of need, where this is the only choice, a person is allowed to.
And how does one do it? They would back out of Shemana Esrei and then go to the child, or
You would just
you just step away.
you can step back. You can step back, and then you go to the child, and then you return to your spot, and you continue davening from there without speaking, of course. Because speaking is always forbidden. Okay, and this is then for now. We ended up a section. We finished a section here. We're going to continue this in 2 weeks' time. Next week we're going to do Shavuos.
Thank you very much. You can get your close. I'm going down here.